at Hawaiian Airlines. We have our inter-island network, which is 150 flights a day between the islands. That's about 70% of our total departures, but it's only about 10% of our carbon footprint. So really the vast majority of the jet fuel that we consume is on our long haul routes. So those routes to North America and to the international destinations that I mentioned. And those are all long haul routes. They're more than 5 hours long. So for those routes, I think we're going to be really dependent on sustainable aviation fuel.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying. Every Thursday, I have important conversations with top aviation executives, technology entrepreneurs, and policymakers helping aviation take climate action. Conversations that help separate the signal from the noise. Whether you are a frequent flyer or an airline executive, if you care about sustainability or simply love traveling, welcome aboard. My guest today is Elena James. Elena is the Managing Director of Sustainability at Hawaiian Airlines. As a career doing strategy across airlines in the world, from Taka in the Caribbean to Hawaiian Airlines, managing investor relations to begin with, and then moving on to sustainability, Elena brings a wealth of experience to the role. We discuss everything from Hawaii's own experience with climate change, how Hawaiian Airlines is working with the likes of Regent, the Sea Glider airline, to managing SAF. Can it be produced locally or not? Elena is very open about the challenges Hawaii faces and what the airline is doing for the future. Please join me in this interview. Elena, welcome to the show. It is such a pleasure to be speaking with the head of sustainability of an airline that is actually impacted by climate change. And being in Hawaii, you're in an island nation, which is highly vulnerable to climate change. How does this impact Hawaiian Airlines' approach to sustainability compared to other airlines?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really an honor to be here. And I think for context, I'd like to start with just a quick introduction to Hawaiian Airlines. So we are a 94-year-old company headquartered here in Honolulu, Hawaii. And our network is really centered on Hawaii. So we have our neighbor island network, which is 150 flights a day between the Hawaiian Islands. And then we fly from Hawaii to the U.S. mainland to about 16 different destinations there. And then we fly from Hawaii to several different international destinations in the Asia Pacific region. Things like countries like Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and others in the South Pacific. So all of our flights either start or end here in Hawaii. And almost all of our more than 7,000 employees are based here in the islands. And so we have, a real deep history and a connection to this place, to Hawaii. It's part of who we are. Our brand is rooted in Hawaiian culture and in Hawaiian hospitality. And in fact, I think a pretty significant portion of our employees were actually born and raised here in the islands. And so they grew up really with an understanding of what sustainability means for an island economy. And it's not just about environmental sustainability, which is really important, but also economic sustainability and cultural sustainability and food security and energy security for our islands. And then, as you referenced in your question, we are in Hawaii. It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and we're on the front lines of climate change. And so whether it's sea level rise or coral bleaching or extreme weather events, we're witnessing these things.
You did have that extreme weather event recently, didn't you?
Yes, we're witnessing these things firsthand, and they're impacting our communities. So this really gives us a sense of urgency to address our climate impact and really to preserve the beauty and the natural resources here in Hawaii. At the same time, though, just given our geographic isolation here in Hawaii, we are really dependent on air travel. So Hawaii is the most isolated island chain in the world, and there's just no other way to get here. So you have to fly if you want to come to Hawaii. And even between the islands, the only option is to fly. And so we're really uniquely dependent on air service for connecting our communities and for transporting goods and really for supporting tourism, which is the economic engine of our state. Inter-island flying acts sort of as a highway system here in Hawaii. You know, people have to use air travel for really everyday things like going to the doctor or going to a high school sporting event, things like that. So it's just really critical for us to find a way to decarbonize aviation here in Hawaii so that we can have sustainable air travel and preserve our way of life and preserve the economic activity that air travel supports.
Thank you so much, Elena, for that context. I think you're one of the most unique airlines I've had on the podcast where, on one hand, you are a holiday destination and you are the national airline of this, the de facto airline of this island of Hawaii or set of islands in Hawaii, where on one hand, you've got the essential travel, the critical travel of connecting these remote set of islands with each other. But on the other hand, you also have these luxury travel, the long haul destinations and the medium haul destinations you mentioned. I remember after the big weather event you had recently, there was a lot of pushback in reopening Hawaii very quickly to tourism. Is this a conversation you have quite often internally, growth versus sustainability and all that comes with it?
Yes. So as I mentioned, we are really reliant on air travel for everyday things, but we're also reliant on air travel to drive economic development in our economy. And so tourism is a big driver in our economy, and it supports our residents here. And so it is really important for us, though, to have sustainable tourism. And that's why we take our commitment to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050 really seriously. This is a really ambitious goal, but it's one that is very important to us. We want to find a way to decarbonize aviation and preserve our island home. Last year, we published our roadmap to net zero. We also established some interim targets for the company. And, our roadmap is actually pretty similar to what you've probably seen in other carriers and, industry roadmaps. We're reliant on a lot of the same things like fleet renewal, ops efficiencies, next generation airplanes, and most importantly, sustainable aviation fuel. I think if anything, we're even more reliant on SAF just given our network compared to some other carriers.
I'm glad to hear you've published your Net Zero 2050 roadmap. What are the different components and what does it look like? What levers are you using here?
Well, the first is fleet renewal. Fleet renewal is, transitioning from older airplanes to new, more fuel efficient airplanes. We're also reliant on operational efficiencies. So things that, our operating areas are working on to just run a more efficient operation that help us to conserve fuel. We're looking at next generation airplanes. It is something that we believe may have the potential to decarbonize our inter-island flying, but it is something that will take time to develop. And so we don't see that really coming into play until around the 2040s timeframe. And then really the biggest opportunity for us is sustainable aviation fuel or SAF. SAF it's a proven drop-in fuel. It works with existing engines, existing infrastructure, as long as it's blended up to 50% with conventional jet fuel. And so it's the most promising technology for long haul aviation. And that's where really the majority of our carbon footprint lies.
Yeah. I think that does make sense. So let's talk about SAF for a minute, right? You've said you've committed to 10% SAF use by 2030. How are you going to get that?
It is a really challenging goal to get to 10% by 2030. There are a lot of challenges with sustainable aviation fuel today. I think, as I mentioned, it is the most promising technology to advance aviation decarbonization, but there's only a very limited supply available today, and it's very expensive. The cost of production is about 3 to 5 times that of conventional jet fuel. So it's just not commercially viable without the support of government incentives. But we do believe that scaling SAF will require collaboration among government. Government is going to play a critical role in catalyzing the SAF industry, but it also requires collaboration among airlines, SAF producers, and importantly, the financing community. And at Hawaiian Airlines, we're working on a number of things to reach our SAF goals. So first is we're entering into long-term offtake agreements with SAF suppliers for future supply of SAF. We're also collaborating with partners to develop the SAF market here in Hawaii. And we are investing in technologies to scale SAF. So happy to go into any of those in more detail.
So let's unpack that one by one, right? One of the deals you announced was the purchase of SAF for 50 million gallons from Gevo starting in 2029. How is this contributing to your overall SAF goals?
The offtake agreement with Gevo is really important for us. It was our first offtake agreement. It is for 50 million gallons, but that's over a period of 5 years. So we are expecting to start taking delivery in 2029 for 10 million annual gallons. And even at 10 million annual gallons, that's a really big number for us. So we're a small carrier. In 2019, our total jet fuel consumption was about 270 million gallons. And so 10 million gallons is a big number. It's almost 4% of our 2019 consumption. And so we're estimating that we're about a third of the way to our 2030 goal just with this offtake agreement. But of course, this is subject to, Gevo getting the financing and building its facility. And so in addition, just wanted to highlight that we are looking to expect to take delivery of this SAF in California. And that's really driven by, the economics and the favorable incentive environment there.
So let's actually touch on that. My other question was going to be, how much of the SAF is going to be in Hawaii, that's pumped in Hawaii, versus outside, your outstations like in California?
So actually, we are expecting to take delivery of this SAF most likely in California. And that's really driven by the economics. So they have the favorable incentive environment there. And so it's likely going to be California, but could be one of our other West Coast markets.
And this is specifically for Gevo, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's
okay.
Correct.
What about Power Hawaii? You have partnered with Power Hawaii as well to explore local SAF production, isn't it?
Yes. So Power Hawaii is the local refinery here on Oahu, and we established a partnership with them back in 2022. Really, the goal of our partnership is to develop the SAF market here in Hawaii. So we really believe that a SAF economy here in Hawaii will not only support aviation decarbonization, but will also contribute to economic development here in our state and support our state's economic diversification goals. And so there's really 3 main parts to our partnership. The first is an engineering study. So we co-funded an engineering study to take a look at what it would take to convert a portion of PAR's facilities to produce SAF. That study is actually completed, and PAR has committed to a $90 million investment to convert a portion of their facilities. So that's really great progress and great news. The second part of our partnership is feedstock exploration. So we wanted to take a look at what are the different feedstock options for Hawaii. Are there options to import feedstock into the state, or could it be possible to actually grow some of our feedstock here? And we do believe that it's likely going to be a combination of both. just given the land constraints here in Hawaii, it's probably not going to be possible to grow enough, energy crops to support all of the aviation demand here in Hawaii. But we're really interested in supporting the local production. And so we're partnering with Pono Pacific. They are a local land conservation company that's based here on Oahu. And they are taking the lead on exploring the feedstock options here in Hawaii. And I can go into that a little bit later if you're interested. Then the third part of our partnership with PAR is really centered around state level policy. So we know that just given the scarcity of supply of SAF, that in the near term, volume is going to go to markets that provide the most value. And so if we want to have SAF here in our home state, we will need to have competitive incentives here in Hawaii. So we've been collaborating with PAR on that. Part of our collaboration included a policy analysis. So we engaged a third party to help us really take a look at what the different policy options could be here in Hawaii and what would be most effective. And then last year, we spent the back half of last year really working together with PAR and Pono Pacific to draft a bill that would provide meaningful tax incentives for renewable fuels here in Hawaii, including SAF. Earlier this year, we worked with legislators to get that bill introduced into the legislative session here in Hawaii. And we launched a new coalition called the Hawaii Renewable Fuels Coalition. The idea was to really broaden the support for our bill with other diverse stakeholders here in Hawaii. And the bill didn't pass in its first year, but our goal is to really broaden our coalition, incorporate stakeholder feedback over the coming months, and come back next year to the legislative session in January with a new version of our bill.
Oh, there's just so much going on, right? There's the policy bit, you have to convince the government, you have to work with local partners. I'm curious if you're able to dig a little deeper into PAR Hawaii and their existing refinery. What does this refinery currently produce? Are they doing any biodiesel or any kind of sustainable fuels at all? And are they just converting it, or is this completely a new process for them?
So this is a new process for them. So they currently produce jet fuel, gasoline, and diesel fuel. A significant portion of the fuel that they produce goes towards our electricity grid. So it's used for electricity production here in Hawaii. They produce a lot of jet fuel that meets a good portion of the demand here in Hawaii, but not all. So I think PAR's production supports about half of the aviation fuel demand here in the state, and then the other half is imported into the state.
I'm curious, are you able to break down your network for me and its reliance on SAF? Like, I'm sure there's the inter-island network, but what percentage are we talking about in terms of percentage of departures versus what jet fuel is used on what kind of routes?
It's interesting because we have kind of a unique network here in Hawaii at Hawaiian Airlines. We have our inter-island network, which is 150 flights a day between the islands, but that's about 70% of our total departures, but it's only about 10% of our carbon footprint. So really the vast majority of the jet fuel that we consume is on our long haul routes. So those routes to North America and to the international destinations that I mentioned. And those are all long haul routes. They're more than 5 hours long. For those routes, I think we're going to be really dependent on sustainable aviation fuel. And we're going to need to find a way to significantly scale production of sustainable aviation fuel in order to meet the demand for those routes.
So amazing how much, it's like the long haul that is going to suck it all up, right? And
yeah.
That's why I guess it makes sense for you to get some of it in Hawaii, some of it locally. You also have done something interesting, which initially took me by surprise, which is you have partnered with a competitor, United Airlines. You've joined their United Airlines Ventures Sustainable Flight Fund. to drive more production. This seems like a team of rivals. Tell me, why are you working with a competitor?
Well, actually, I think it's interesting because in sustainability, I think there's been a lot of collaboration across the airline industry. And so that's been really great. And for us at Hawaiian Airlines, we're a small company. And so it's really hard for us to invest in new technologies on our own. That's challenging for a company of our size. And so at the same time, we really wanted to play a part in, supporting and advancing new technologies to scale sustainable aviation fuel. And so, yes, back in 2023, we made the decision to invest in United Airlines Ventures Sustainable Flight Fund. It's a fund that actually has, I believe it's 22 different corporate partners that are all investing alongside United Airlines in this fund. So it's a fund that is focused on developing and deploying technologies that can help to scale SAF. So at Hawaiian Airlines, we're just really excited to have this opportunity to be partnering with leaders in the space and excited to partner with companies like United, Air Canada, JetBlue, Boeing, GE, JP Morgan Chase, and many others in order to really collaborate and pool our resources
Right.
and help everyone get closer to our sustainability goals.
Right. This is very interesting. We are, of course, intimately familiar with what the Flight Fund is doing. There are some Scope 3 buyers here, like Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase. Yet there are some airlines which consume fuel. So how does it work? Do you, let's say, put some money in the pot and then you do joint procurement of SAF? Is that what's happening here?
I think for us, really the main driver was the ability to be able to participate in supporting these new technologies, because we know that in order for SAF to be able to scale, we're going to need more than the technologies that are available today. And so we really believe that these emerging technologies really have potential. And so this was a great way for us to be able to participate in this space and support these investments without having to, set up our own ventures arm or something that wouldn't be possible for a company of our size.
That makes sense. I mean, then you're working with a collaborator and you're pooling resources together. I think it's quite visionary. I'm hoping to see some very good announcements and results out of it.
Also, I think one thing I might add too is that for us at Hawaiian Airlines, we're a leisure carrier. And so most of our guests are paying for their tickets themselves. And it's money that they've saved to go on vacation. And so it's not the same situation as many of these airlines that have big corporate customers. And so for us at Hawaiian Airlines, we don't really have the opportunity to pass on a lot of the green premium to corporate customers, because corporate customers are just a very small part of our business. And a lot of our corporate customers are things like, it's the healthcare system here in Hawaii that travels on our inter-island network, or, high school sports or the state government, things like that. So it's not the kind of typical corporate business that you might see at other airlines.
Okay, when you say people pay for it themselves, what else are the options? I thought everyone is redeeming miles for coming to Hawaii.
Yes, a lot of people do redeem miles. That's true. But a lot of people are buying their tickets directly.
Yeah, I hear you. It's not corporate travel, the
Right.
traditional corporate travel. I was reading that you have also got a goal to conserve 3 million gallons of jet fuel through operational efficiency and operational efficient initiatives by 2028. What sort of changes are you implementing to put this into effect?
We're actually working on a number of things through our fuel efficiency team. So this is a cross-functional team that we have here at Hawaiian Airlines that works on identifying and implementing fuel conservation initiatives. And it's actually a group that's been around for more than a decade. Fuel is one of our biggest expenses. And so it's been a priority for us to be focused on operational efficiency and fuel conservation for as long as I can remember here at Hawaiian Airlines. And so the group is led by our team in Tech Ops business planning, but also includes the other operating areas like maintenance, airport operations and flight operations. And I think that the biggest opportunities for us are really around things like single engine taxi procedure and finding ways to reduce the time that we use the APU. Some of the other things that the team is looking at are things like additional software tools that could help to optimize and make us more efficient. These are really important initiatives. We don't expect that they're going to generate, as much impact as sustainable aviation fuel will, but they are important, and operational efficiencies will always be a priority for us.
What's been the response from the pilots and the crew to some of these initiatives? Have you started trialing them already?
Yes. So these, as I mentioned, these have been initiatives that we have been collaborating on, for years. And so we have good participation from our pilots. I mean, obviously, things like a single engine taxi procedure, that is up to the pilot to decide whether it's appropriate and safe to use that procedure. And so certainly it is their decision, but it's good for us to be able to provide the data and so that, everyone knows how we're doing along those lines.
Interesting. Okay. This is encouraging to hear you've not received like pushback on we don't want to do this and this is not necessary, for example. You've also committed to improving fuel efficiency per seat mile. I think it's 4% from 2019 levels by 2028. Of course, you are getting the new 787s. Are you on track?
The biggest opportunity for fuel efficiency for Hawaiian Airlines between now and 2028 is really the Boeing 787-9. So just for context, at Hawaiian Airlines, we actually have one of the youngest long-haul fleets in the U.S. airline industry with our A330s and our A321neos. So we're actually already pretty fuel efficient. We've invested significantly in fleet renewal over the past decade and a half, but we're continuing to invest and in the 787. And right now we have 2 787s in our fleet today, and we have a firm order to get to 12 of these airplanes. And so the 787-9 is about 20% more fuel efficient than similarly sized previous generation airplanes. And so really the 787 is going to be key to hitting that 4% fuel efficiency goal by 2028. So it's really the incorporation of that fleet into our network. And the work that the fuel efficiency team is doing that I mentioned earlier will also contribute, but I think the 787 is a big driver.
Right. Okay. Now, we've talked a lot about SAF and long haul and fuel, right? But earlier you had mentioned there's a lot of inter-island and intra-island flying, which is short haul. And you've done a very interesting investment. You have become an equity investor in Regent, which is developing electric sea gliders. This is so interesting. How is this going to fit into your inter-island operations in the future?
Inter-island flying, as I mentioned, is a very small part of our carbon footprint, but it is one that actually could be a potential candidate for some of these new emerging technologies like battery electric. Our flights inter-island are really short distances, so 100 to 200 miles. And so those could be good candidates for these technologies. But I think one of the challenges that we have here in Hawaii is that those routes actually have a lot of passengers on them. So there's a lot of traffic between the Hawaiian Islands. We have just with Hawaiian Airlines network alone, we have 150 flights a day with 120 seat airplanes. That's a lot of seats between the islands. And most of the companies that are looking at developing these new technologies are starting off with airplanes that are in, 9 to 19 seat range. And really our network will not be suitable for airplanes of those size. It's just not going to be efficient. And so we're really interested in technologies that have the potential to get to 100 plus seats. And so that's what interested us in Regent. The Sea Glider is a vehicle that will take off and land out of the water. So it's going to operate out of harbor infrastructure, port infrastructure, so not out of airports. Regent is in the process right now of developing their smaller vehicle. So they are working on a 12-seater right now, but they do have plans to develop a 100-seater, and that was what was interesting for us. And so we see it as a potential complement to inter-island flying, but not a replacement. So the technology is still though in the really early stages, and so still a lot to learn about that. I think there's a lot of infrastructure questions and environmental questions that still need to be answered, but we're looking forward to
Okay,
evaluating the technology.
fair enough. When do you think you might have the first Regent powered flight?
So we do not have a purchase agreement for any of the Sea Gliders, but we are acting as a design partner for their larger vehicle. They're calling it the Monarch vehicle. And so it's something that we are interested to support and explore the technology. I think in general, though, we do expect that these technologies are going to take time to develop, and particularly to get to the size of vehicle that we need to support inter-island flying. And so in our roadmap, we have next generation airplane technologies coming into play in the 2040s timeframe, because we just think it's going to take time for these technologies to develop.
Very interesting. So I'm very curious now because back in the day when Airbus was launching the A380, it worked with Emirates on its design specification, but Emirates had placed a very large order of the A380. How is it that Regent is able to work with you without Hawaiian placing an order?
Well, we have made an equity investment in Regent, and so that was part of the collaboration that we have with Regent. We are acting as design partner, and I think for Hawaiian Airlines, we have been operating inter-island for almost 100 years, and so we have a lot of experience and expertise that we can share with Regent. And so I think that was something that was attractive to them as well, to be able to partner with our airline.
Okay, that does make sense. Then it's a nice value exchange. You've also partnered with Conservation International. This is to offer carbon offsets to customers. How important are offset programs to overall sustainability? Of course, there's been a recent reputational hit around carbon offsetting. Is this still a critical factor for you?
In general, at Hawaiian Airlines, we're really focused on aviation sector specific decarbonization initiatives. And so things like fleet renewal, operational efficiencies, the next gen airplanes, and sustainable aviation fuel. So that is really our focus in our decarbonization strategy. But carbon offsets are something that some consumers value. And so we wanted to be able to offer that product with a reputable partner. And so that's why we partnered with Conservation International back in 2022. And so we do offer an offset product to our guests who wish to offset the emissions from their flight. Now, we do believe that there really needs to be transparency and accountability in this industry to ensure the offsets are credible. And that's something that we expect of our partners, and something that we'll keep a close eye on.
How is this product being offered currently? Is this in the booking path? Is it on the website or somewhere else?
It's not directly in the booking path, but we do mention it, that it is available in the booking path. And then the guest needs to click on it, and it'll take them over to a Conservation International site where they can actually purchase the offset.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. You also have a single use plastic reduction initiative. How is this working out and what's the progress been?
Yeah, so we are committed actually to reducing single-use plastic from our onboard product by 50% by 2025, and also completely eliminating single-use plastics by 2029. So we have really ambitious targets in this area. I do have to admit, though, this is not under my area. I'm really focused on decarbonization, but our team over in product development here at Hawaiian Airlines is working on these initiatives, and they've made some really great progress. So they've done several things, like they have replaced some of the water bottles that we carry on board. They've replaced those with aluminum. They've also made some changes to our amenity kits and removed a lot of the plastic from the amenity kits. They've been able to find suitable plastic alternatives for some of the other plastic items like hot cups and straws and salt and pepper shakers, things like that. Another thing that they've been doing is that they've tried to think of ways to redesign our service so that we can produce less waste. So things like they are now in our first class cabin, we are now offering some of the items in our amenity kit a la carte so that guests can choose which items they would like. And that helps to reduce the amount of plastic we have on board and reduce the waste in our operation. And so they've made a lot of really great progress. There's still a lot to do to get to the 2025 goal.
Right.
They're starting to take a look at some of the really high use items next. And so I think that'll really help to make a big impact. And so just really excited by the progress they've been making there.
These, I think put together are some very interesting consumer facing initiatives. Is there something you are doing in flight or through the customer journey to educate the customer on sort of, how do you behave as a tourist in Hawaii, for example?
Yes, actually, we do have something called our Travel Pono program, and it's a series of videos that we show on our in-flight entertainment, and we show a video right before landing. So everybody that travels on our airplane sees the video, and it's a really great video. It's employees from Hawaiian Airlines that are sharing ways to really travel responsibly.
That's nice. I'm wondering if it's on YouTube. I'll go check it out.
I believe it is. Yes.
Okay. I'm curious, Elena, given there is also a lot of long haul flying, and you mentioned how long haul flying is a significant majority of your overall emissions. Do you foresee a role for hydrogen powered aircraft in your long term sustainability strategy?
So yes, as I mentioned earlier, when I was discussing Regent, we do believe that some of these emerging propulsion technologies have the potential to contribute to our decarbonization in our island. But it's going to take time for these technologies to develop. Now, with hydrogen, I think it's actually could be a potential option, particularly given, the high passenger volumes that we have here in Hawaii. If the battery electric technology is not able to evolve to be able to carry, airplanes with 100 seats or more, then hydrogen could be another option. I think here in Hawaii, though, there are a lot of really significant infrastructure challenges with hydrogen. And so I think there's still a lot to learn and evaluate about whether hydrogen could be part of the solution. But happy to expand more on the infrastructure challenges if you're interested.
Yes, I am actually. And you had earlier mentioned how you're working with another local partner on feedstock. So I'm guessing Hawaii is very sunny. So you can do solar to SAF or solar to green hydrogen, and there are technologies that already exist for this. So what kind of infrastructure challenges are you facing?
So with hydrogen, there are, the infrastructure challenges that I think any airline would face, and that's the, infrastructure that's required at the airports. Also, there would be all of the hydrogen production infrastructure that would be needed. But one of the challenges that we have here in Hawaii is just given the scarce land resources that we have here, we have a really significant demand for renewable energy generation capacity for our islands. So, and maybe just for context, here in Hawaii, we actually have some pretty aggressive climate targets here in the state of Hawaii. So the state of Hawaii has a mandate to convert our electricity grid to 100% renewable by 2045. The grid is currently about 60% from diesel. And then we also have ambitious climate targets to reach economy-wide net zero emissions within Hawaii. And so there will be a lot of demand for renewable power in order to meet those goals. And so hydrogen production is, from what I understand, is really energy intensive. And so that's just a consideration for us here in Hawaii. We do have the most expensive electricity in the country. And then we have a lot of competing interests for new development of renewable power. And so I think, there are still a lot of questions and a lot to evaluate on this. I think for us at Hawaiian Airlines, our goal is to decarbonize our operations in the most cost-effective and efficient way possible. And also, importantly, in a way that our community supports. And so really right now, everything is on the table. We're looking at all of the options, and we're excited to explore new technologies to see if they could be part of the solution here.
Very interesting. I love how open you are both to new technologies as well as collaboration. And yes, Hawaii faces very unique challenges there. I think it's been a very interesting study into how an airline can really think about sustainability from an impacted perspective, given the locals are very sensitive to this. What's been your journey, Ellen? I'm curious, how did you find yourself in this role? You don't have a sustainability background, do you?
No, I actually do not have a sustainability background. I have an undergraduate degree in economics and an MBA. And then all of my experience post MBA has been in the airline industry. So it's been 18 years now. I worked for Taka Airlines in El Salvador for 5 years in their strategy and business development group. And then I came here to Hawaiian Airlines back in 2011. So I've been here in Hawaii for 13 years and had a number of different roles here at Hawaiian Airlines. I've gotten some really great opportunities here. I started off in our strategy and transformation team, which was an internal consulting group. I also spent some time in FP&A and looking at labor analysis and flight profitability analysis. Spent about 3 years overseeing our regional business, our former regional business that was called Ohana by Hawaiian. And then after that, I moved to investor relations. So spent a couple of years in investor relations through the pandemic. And then in 2021, moved into this role here, overseeing sustainability initiatives for Hawaiian Airlines. So it's been a really great experience for me, great opportunities here at Hawaiian. And I really love what I'm working on right now. It's been really fulfilling to be able to work on decarbonizing aviation. Aviation's been a huge part of my life. And so it's really inspiring and fulfilling to be working on making this industry sustainable.
Well, now it looks like your best years are yet to come and you're going to have the biggest impact through your work now.
Thank you. Thank you.
The last part of this interview is what we call the rapid fire round, in which we get to know you a bit more personally. And I'm going to ask you simple questions and you'll have to give me the first answer that pops in your head. So, for example, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is, I love to dance and I love anything related to music and dance. And so one of my favorite movies right now is The Greatest Showman. And I rewatch it all the time.
Wow. Okay. Well, my girls are into dancing as well. 2 little girls I have, and their favorite movie is Ballerina.
Okay. I haven't seen that one.
Oh yes, it's quite an underdog story of a little girl who wants to become a ballerina. It's an animated film. So that's,
great.
That's something we are into these days. What about you?
I'll check it out. So I don't spend a lot of time reading these days. I used to be an avid reader of novels, and I think my favorite book was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Okay, fair enough. One of the favorite as well. I really enjoyed reading that one. Favorite city?
Well, I love Honolulu. Obviously, I've been here for 13 years, and it's a really great city. If I have to choose a backup, I would say Barcelona.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a long way, and that's a lot of CO2 emissions for you to get to Barcelona.
I love Barcelona. I spent a couple of years there. I did my MBA in Barcelona, so lived there for 2 years. So I have very fond memories from that city.
That explains everything. If not Hawaiian, what's your favorite airline?
So I think I would have to say Taka Airlines. As I mentioned, I used to work for Taka for 5 years, and it was a really great airline.
Indeed, they really rethought airlines in the Caribbean, and that a Caribbean airline could be so successful as Taka was.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yep.
is something you'd like to learn?
I'm actually taking tennis lessons right now. So really hoping I can get better at tennis.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
guessing that's what you do in your free time as well. Play tennis these days.
Yeah, I have been taking tennis lessons. But I also, as I mentioned, I love to dance. So I try to go out dancing when I can. I'm a salsa dancer.
Oh,
So
wow.
love to do that. And then here in Hawaii, just the ocean is so incredible. I try to spend as much time as I can at the beach and love to swim and really enjoy these beautiful environment that we have here in Hawaii.
Very nice. This is very nice to hear. What is the best advice you've received, Elena?
I think it would be from my mom. She is really an optimist, and she's always instilling in me that I need to have to look on the bright side, look at things with the glass half full.
Okay, very nice. And finally, if we are speaking 1 year from now and we are popping champagne, what are we celebrating?
So a year from now, I hope that we are celebrating that the state of Hawaii has adopted meaningful incentives for sustainable aviation fuel and other renewable fuels here in Hawaii.
Amen to that. Well, I hope we will speak in a year celebrating that milestone. All the best. And Elena, congratulations on a fantastic initiatives you've been taking at Hawaii.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simplifying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simplifying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simplifying. The show is produced by Juraj Toth in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our supervising editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Meera Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Lihia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Drimen is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.